questions, sir.
Mr. Chair, I can see by your comments that you are determined to move forward with what I believe was a very flawed selection process. I said in the previous board meeting that it had nothing to do with the candidate that was chosen in that meeting. I believe he is a very competent candidate and a very qualified candidate. But I believe the process and the selection raised more questions than it answered. By virtue of the majority vote last week, we have an acting superintendent. And I am committed to working with our acting superintendent. He is an acting superintendent without a contract because the contract was not taken up today. But you know, all of our administrators work without a contract. They're employees at will. So there's nothing that precludes our moving forward with an open and transparent process. Given the fact that we've already named Mr. Carvalho as our acting superintendent, the fact that he does not have a contract only means that we have the flexibility to open the process up for any other candidate that wishes to apply for this job. And he could continue to act as our acting superintendent as he has done so capably so far. We have bargaining units that are under contract, some of whom are teachers in particular, whose contract is not being honored now, but they're out there and they're working. So there will be nothing unusual. There's no requirement that our acting superintendent be under contract. And quite frankly, there should be no rush to vote on a contract without a transparent process where candidates are properly vetted. We had a state representative here, Representative Zapata, who did not speak, but I spoke to him earlier. He told me that Tallahassee is watching. They're watching, and they control our purse strings during these difficult budget times. They're watching the way we conduct business. And yes, we have a tremendous urgency to go in a particular direction and to have some leadership here in the superintendent's position. But they're also watching whether we're going to continue to conduct business as usual. And business as usual will not be acceptable from my perspective. I don't think there's anything difficult to understand about the fact that backroom deals and lack of transparency is not the way to conduct business, and it's business as usual. We have been through a very difficult period the last few years under our previous superintendent, and this is a golden opportunity to get a fresh start. Mr. Chairman, in our last meeting, you made a statement that that things aren't going to, and you were quoted in the paper saying that things aren't going to be any different just because we have a different superintendent. Well, you know, you made that statement in the same meeting, but we had probably the most flawed process I could remember to select an incoming superintendent. The irony was that a vote was taken, and you asked our attorney whether we had followed procedure, and he said we hadn't, so we had to retake a vote. But perhaps it was because the outcome wasn't the outcome you had liked. There were many other procedural issues that remain unsettled from that meeting that were never addressed. So if we want to do things right, I guarantee you, Mr. Chairman, that it starts with the top, with leadership at the top. It starts with our chairman. And if you're committed to having a transparent and open process, I'm committed to doing things differently as well and moving forward and working together as a unified board. I know that some board members have said, and one in particular, that the board has always conducted business this way, that superintendents have been selected without a vetting process. Well, to me, that's not good enough. As I said earlier, business as usual is not good enough anymore, and it's not acceptable anymore. In the last 3 days, we have been hammered in the media. 4 articles alone in the Miami Herald, not to mention the TV media. Numerous stories there about the way this process was undertaken. As I said, Tallahassee is watching, and we have emerged from a very difficult and turbulent period. As we begin the next era, whether it be the Carvalho era or anybody else, I think we have an opportunity to do things the right way, to open it up, to have public input, to have public notice that we're even selecting a superintendent, which was not given. And that I believe is unprecedented. Unprecedented that we put something on the agenda to decide the future of this school system. Probably the most important decision that we as a board are going to make. And that the public not have the opportunity to opine on it and to speak on it, and that candidates not have the opportunity to come forward. I guarantee you that if you do this and you take this opportunity, the fact that we don't have a contract before us today, the fact that maybe we're taking a second look at this. I don't know the politics behind what happened here today. Perhaps, I believe you, Mr. Chair, that the contract was not ready, that Mr. Greenberg did not have a chance to finish the contract. But maybe there's an opportunity for us to step back and do things the right way. And if you do that, Mr. Chair, you have at least my commitment, and I know from the other board members who have raised these issues that you're going to have their commitment, that we're going to work together as a unified board under whoever that new superintendent ends up being.